I'm great. I'm coming to you live from Amsterdam,
Yeah.
in the Netherlands, and it feels really good to be here.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you for doing this. It's really amazing because, as I said to you, like when we talked before, it's the stories that are inspiring us and stories that we want to hear how others are doing it, and that's always inspiring.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, like when we started, and where were you at? What was your situation when we started working together?
Yeah, I think we started working together actually around this time last year, maybe August or September.
Yeah.
And I had been out of work for probably 2 or 3 months at that point. So I had wrapped up a project with my last company, and that ended, I think, on earlier than expected and on probably not the best of, of terms that I expected, as the company was going through some bigger shifts that were outside of my control. So I think at the time we started to working together, I was in probably a bit of a funk on two levels. One, I think, um, feeling like I needed to jump back in and get the next role and have it be sort of the perfect role for me. And what I was finding was a lot of roles that were kind of exactly the same as what I wanted and what I was doing before, like same
Yeah.
industry, same type of role. And so that was kind of getting discouraging because I wanted to make a shift away from B2B marketing and communications to something that was more um, consumer focused, and I wasn't really being considered for those opportunities. And at the same time, along with knowing that I wanted something else, it was hard for me to really articulate what that something else was.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I remember as you kind of have felt that you don't want to repeat the very same that you had done before, and
Yeah,
you wanted something new, but you didn't know what it is and what it was, and it was related to your personal life as well. You wanted to some changes there as well, so that you would have more time to be with your kids and with your husband and with your family, and do other things than working that much, like all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, that was a big part of it. I felt like even in the previous job, I had a hard time separating my work life from my personal life. And when I was home, I felt like I couldn't be as present with my husband and with my two young kids as I wanted to be, because I was sort of playing through different scenarios that were happening in my mind about my team, or projects and sort of the politics of work. And so um, I knew that I wanted a change from that, but I didn't necessarily see how that would be possible to.
Yeah, yeah. And when we started doing the work, what were the first things that helped you to create clarity on what you want?
Hmm. I think working together through the realization that you have to go within to figure out what you want.
Hmm.
And I think so much of our culture tells us what we should want. And it's usually like a very linear process of, I'm going to get from A to B. And each thing requires like a promotion or a raise, or I want this type of title. I want to be recognized as this type of thing. And I think a lot of us, especially in the States, you see that the title of the company that you work for and the money that you're getting can play a large part in sort of dictating our self-worth and what we're
Yeah,
supposed to. And so
yeah.
I felt like I was chasing that, maybe what other people were
Mhm.
saying I should want, instead of really tuning in to my own desires.
Mm. And was it for you that you hadn't really stopped before to think about these things, that what you really wanted and who you really are? Because I remember you said, like, I really feel that I have more potential that I haven't reached. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean like only like professional, like your professional potential, but something that you felt like you want more and want to give more, but also receive more in multiple levels. And, you felt that that was pretty difficult for you to find that. But was it for you that you hadn't done this kind of a work before, or you had just gone in the flow, after studies and, moving forward and going after these shoots,
Yeah, I think I was
predefined predefined goals and kind of a terms how we should live happy life.
right, right. Yeah, I think I was caught in that trap a little bit of always reaching for the next goal, being sort of career driven and ambitious, and seeing a huge part of myself um, in my career, and sort of having that identity overlap probably more than it should. So I am what I do instead of
Mm-hmm.
I am. And I think the work that we did together, mapping not only what I wanted next in my career and evaluating sort of the level of health of multiple areas of my life. So I remember we did like a life wheel that looked at
Mm-hmm.
how healthy I felt, in terms of spiritual development, in terms of what I was able to contribute to a community, the relationships that I have with my friends and family and my husband and my children, um, how I'm taking care of my physical health, and then career just being one piece of that. Whereas I felt like before I was really letting um, sort of the career take up a much bigger slice of
Mm.
the pie, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And what was really the kind of a wake up call for you? You started searching, you want something more because of how you found me. You felt like you need some help, you want some support. Maybe there's somebody who can help you to solve your problem or issue that you couldn't know what are the next steps. You wanted more, but you were not sure how does it happen and how do you define it? Like, what do you want? That was frustrating. Of course, it's frustrating to many people because they feel this push pull. I want something, but I don't know what it is. But I'm not happy what I have today.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think we worked together a little bit initially on sort of the rapid transformational therapy side, where I realized that there were some sort of subconscious blocks that were holding me back, I think, from showing up the way that I wanted to, from maybe even envisioning the type of life that I wanted to have, where I just felt really, really stuck. And I knew that there were stories that I was telling myself, or unconscious beliefs that I had, that I felt like were playing a bigger role in my life than I was kind of consciously aware of, even though I didn't know what maybe those were at the time. And so I think some of the stuff that we focused on when we first started together was uncovering what those unconscious beliefs were. And I discovered that I really had a big predilection towards criticism as almost as a method of protection from fear of exposure, from a fear of rejection, and that manifested in a lot of ways of me not taking big bold leaps because I felt like I had to be really perfect,
Yeah.
make things kind of like rejection proof, like people would be so just impressed because I had hit everything that they wouldn't be able to reject me, and that I wouldn't have to feel like I was really exposing a vulnerable side of myself. And I saw how through the work we did together, I saw how that was actually preventing me from looking at different types of opportunities. It was keeping me and my family stuck in sort of this pattern of overworking, especially in New York City, and feeling really
Mm-hmm.
tired all the time. And like we couldn't necessarily um, get ahead there because I think it was just kind of reinforcing those beliefs. And so doing the work together of being more comfortable with feeling vulnerable, removing some of the layers of self-criticism that I had used
Mm.
as a protection method, were really important as kind of a first step to opening my mind about what else is out there for me and allowing me to dream a little bit bigger in terms of
Yeah.
what could I do instead of having an idea pop into my head and shutting it down because, oh, that'll
It's
never
not possible. Yeah.
be possible, it'll never work, you're not good enough,
Yeah.
um, that's not for people like you, whatever the things are that play in your head that kind of keep you from getting open and vulnerable.
Yeah.
A lot of that was coming up for me, I think, before we even got into the place where together we could go through what my actual desires were.
Yeah. Well, basically, it's not possible until we kind of realize and surrender to who we are and what's in there and release the attachment with the past.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that because it's like what I see in my own experiences, of course, but also with all the people and all my clients. And it doesn't matter how successful you are, we all have those insecurities and fears. And quite often people think that they are their faults, but they are not. It's
Mm.
always going to be there, like when we are up leveling our lives and reaching our goals and desires and making our big dreams true. It's the fears will be always there. And
Yeah.
when we just understand, like it's very human and approving, and of course it's part of the self-love as well. It's so much easier. Like, hey, there's nothing wrong with me. I can do this, and then I can try, and I will see where does it lead. And when we are coming from that place towards and thinking about desires that are based on our authentic desires, our heart-based desires, then we sort of create possibilities and make it happen and
Yeah.
allow it to happen, allow it to receive. And I remember we worked a little bit with the receiving as well, that you could start believing like, hey, it could be possible for me to have all this.
Mm-hmm.
But that totally opened up for you that you started, you were able to connect with your desires and dreamed big, and even bigger than you were able to think, because I think that's always necessary and needed, but that's always fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as women, as a mother, it's hard, and as someone who, if you're in a work environment where you're expected to be working a lot, especially now that people are online sort of 24/7, it's hard to dedicate that time to discovering these things about yourself and kind of doing the work. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that I was privileged in that, I had a good kind of package coming out of my last role. And so I was able to take some time off to
Yeah.
do this work, and also like pick up some consulting jobs while I was figuring these things out. But I think the other thing that I discovered is that you really can make big changes just by setting aside a couple of hours for yourself a week,
Mm.
make it really into something um, that's a way for you to take care of yourself, where a lot of times I would do the journaling exercises and I would make tea and light a candle and make it feel like something special that I was doing for myself. And I think that helped to get into a good routine. And I think it also took me out of a place where I was thinking about things just from like a linear, how do I get where I want to go fashion, and
Yeah.
getting more creative and in tune with my heart and my body about what I,
Yeah, yeah. So you basically started using the methods that I'm always talking about. You connected with the present moment, started journaling about your feelings and emotions, and that is basically opening up the creative process. Like when
yeah,
we start doing the morning pages or evening pages, it's like
yeah,
it's personal, like when you want to do that. But it really, you started connecting with yourself and taking really good care about yourself, your like mentally and emotionally as well. And quite often we just think that we need to exercise, take really good care of our body, what we eat, and that's how we become healthy. But actually it's not enough. We have to take care of our mental side and emotional side as well.
yeah,
And I'm happy to see like that's becoming people are more and more aware of that, and
definitely.
journaling is really powerful. So, what was really happening to you, like when you started really connecting and got into this creative mode and understanding and feeling like what kind of a life you want to start creating? Because it was not only about the work, and you had a lot of ideas what you want to do next in your career. And I think what I really loved about your process, because you started searching and exploring, and you opened your mind to see out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So you really explored like different options, and went to interviews and to different kind of companies, and that was kind of
Yeah.
a helping you to define the next steps, because you got the experience and feedback. Like, how does it feel?
Yeah, yeah. I think in those first interviews that I had while we were working together, I think that's where it became really clear that if I accepted this role, it would be jumping back into sort of same situation, but a different company.
Yeah.
And that woke me up to like, this is not where I want to be. I think I was like, if I have to go to this conference one more time, I'm going to lose it. And so
Yeah.
like imagining myself in that place in 1 year or 5 years, it just created almost this physical reaction in me
Oh yeah,
that
a
told
lot
me,
of anxiety there. Like,
yeah,
this is
this is
not what I want. Yeah.
not what I want. But I had been really, whether it's internal or from the culture, really sort of trained to like look at these types of roles. Like you want to move up in terms of the title, in terms of the salary, um, and so I think we did some work where we mapped out what are the qualities that you want to have in something, and divorce that from the title, from the company, from um, the level of seniority or how much money you're bringing in at first, and just think about the qualities that you want to have in your career. And so I knew that I wanted it to be generative, that I would be constantly learning. I knew that I wanted to continue to mentor younger people on my team. I knew that I wanted probably to get closer to marketing strategy and research again, and to get closer to the creative side of things, because I really like being creative, and being part of the creative process.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted the space to feel really big and bright. Like I wanted to be happy to go into the office every day because it felt really good to be there. I wanted to be able to get outside during the day. And then we also went into other areas like what did I want my personal life to look like? And I wanted my husband and I to have a lot more time to spend together. I wanted to be able to travel the world with my family. I wanted and open them up to new shared experiences that we could have together. I wanted to feel more present when I was with my kids and not like I was constantly rehashing different discussions from work.
Yeah.
I wanted to have time to be more physically active and to prioritize that, and prioritize um, eating better, and all of these types of things. And so I think that really unlocked something new for me, where I started and as I applied that to the job search and talking to people or looking for positions online, I started looking at it through that lens when I would read the job
Mm.
descriptions instead of searching by, just title or level of seniority,
Yeah.
or what I
Yeah.
expected the salary to be like. And so that for me opened up an entirely different world because I looked at a few different positions that were completely different from what I had been doing. So I was doing a little consulting along the way, and I saw um, a job posting for a role where you would be like an office admin part-time at a creative co-working space. And then you could also use that co-working space for the second half of the day.
Mm.
And so I applied for that position,
Mm.
and I went and interviewed for it. And that was something that I never would have thought of doing before, because it's that is essentially for someone who's kind of maybe their first role or something.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I don't mind keeping a space tidy and making coffee and saying hi to people if it means that I get to work alongside all of these other creative people,
Mm.
know them. Maybe it would lead to additional partnerships for me. Maybe I could have my own business where I'm doing this and build it out of this place.
Mm-hmm.
And so, ultimately I didn't decide to go in that direction, but I don't think that I ever would have looked outside the box
Yeah.
at something that was so different from what I had been doing or felt like I could have, unless
Mm.
I did that work about like, well, what are the kinds of jobs I would want and what would really
Yeah.
be a stretch and
Yeah.
what feels safe and like the next step.
Yeah, and I think it was really good step for you, or really good test for yourself, like to see what's out there, and just like put yourself out there and feel it. How does it feel for you? But
Yeah.
also, it was like you started recognizing your self-worth after that. It was like, no, maybe I want something more. Maybe it's like I don't have to go back to the square one. So
Right.
it's like, but that was like kind of a step in the process, because
Yeah.
that opened kind of led you forward. And so what happened next, because I remember in some point you felt frustrated, and I was like, no, we are going to take a big leap here, trust me, like let's focus more on your desires and dreams and feeling it. And we talked a lot about feeling it, and you did quite a bit work of how you started getting connected with what you want and your desires. And I remember I was admiring, because you every day you wrote down your visions and feelings and
Mhm.
kept your mind in what you want, in your goals.
Yeah. So I think, sort of in parallel to these different interviews I was doing, like you were saying, I was almost working with kind of an early prototype of the calendar system that you were working on, where I started every day by looking at what are my intentions for the day? How do I want to show up that day? And just having a few words, and also looking at it through the lens of it's as if you're kind of reflecting on the day
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm going to do this, more through the process of saying, like, it was a great day because I did X, Y, and Z. And and that I think started shifting things for me, because it was just important to show how I was showing up and what I was doing. And I spent a lot more time investing in getting into a really good place, and kind of connecting with material or with people that I was interviewing and talking with, versus it being more of a transactional relationship. So
Yeah.
spending more time connecting with it, spending more time preparing in different ways. So I think even as I went into interview preparation for things, the focus was less on what, what are my top 5 strengths and top weakness, or whatever the typical
Yeah.
questions are. And I would start out that process by maybe going through my intentions and my affirmations. I would make sure that, I was kind of in a high energy place where I was in maybe a coffee shop or a room that I really like to be in. I would have tried to do some exercise before
Mm-hmm.
that or a meditation, because for me that helps me get grounded and feel really good. And so
Mm-hmm.
it became a lot more about how I was feeling in the process and the energy that I was showing up with,
Mm.
because, and the energy that other people were bringing, and using that as a way to identify if something felt right to me or not, and really tuning into if things didn't feel right, why not? And instead of just plowing forward because it had the right title or
Yeah.
right industry,
Mm-hmm.
asking myself more questions like, this just doesn't feel the way that I want to feel
Yeah.
something. And I think what can be hard at that point, and that's where it goes back to sort of, I was very fortunate to have some time to dedicate to this process, and I didn't have to jump right back into full time, which I know isn't always an option for everyone. But there's a huge amount of external pressure to make other people feel comfortable by taking the next job that they think you should have,
Oh,
or
that's so
being in
good.
a
Yeah.
market that they think you should be in, or a city, or how they think you should live your life based on what they would choose. And so I think that just continuously tuning into yourself, putting up boundaries with people, if you need to protect your own process, is really
Mm.
something I had to do with my mom and my sister a little bit throughout the journey,
Mm-hmm.
as they didn't want to see me or my family move potentially far away from them, and
Yeah.
not taking on others' negativity through the process and letting that color what you want, or preventing you from taking a big leap, I think is really key.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. And quite often our environment is resisting the changes as
Yeah,
well. First of all, we are resisting a lot. Our mind is resisting a
yeah,
lot. But then there's the environment, and if you're not aware of it, like what's happening, that it's resistance, and it takes time until other people kind of settle and get used to it, and kind of for new you, the positive you, and the different like a way you think about things and react and respond to things. It's interesting, but of course, like things will always calm down,
yeah,
and it gets better. But it's always like everybody's freaking out, and then it's easier to say like, hey, why? What I'm thinking here, and start
right,
questioning yourself, and stop having that belief that not believing that you can do the changes, and having
yeah,
that faith. So it's easy. That's when the most people actually go back to the very same old and believe like maybe that was not for me, because
yeah,
they start believing like they can't make the changes, because obstacles are always coming up and showing up on that phase when we
mm-hmm.
are just about to get there. And then it's like a life is kind of a challenging. Is this what you really want? Is
Yeah,
this what you
yeah,
really want? And
right,
then it's time to keep going and keeping that in mind, and cry if you need, and keep going.
yeah, yeah,
But that's part of the process.
yeah. And I think that that's where it's helpful to do the work of journaling and writing down what you want, because it provides you with a really nice touchstone that you can come back to and say,
Yeah.
no, this is what I want.
Yeah.
These are my goals. This is what I want to get to.
Yeah.
Because like you were saying, that resistance will come up, whether it's internal or external, from people
Mm-hmm.
who may be really well-meaning, but in order for you to take a big leap and really shift things in a dramatic way, it requires a new way of thinking and doing things that you haven't done.
Totally. A new mindset, a new level of faith, uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that you trust the unknown, because That's the most difficult for most people, is that we naturally have a need to be in control and control our future and control everything that we want to know. But
Yeah.
it's difficult to trust the unknown, and
Yeah.
that's what's needed. That's
Right.
really what's needed. You also started visualizing and really like envisioning your desires,
Mhm.
and so that you can activate your subconscious mind to really attract and manifest all those great things.
Yeah.
And I think that was helpful for you, like doing the meditations and visualizing and using your mind the power of your mind in that way to
Mhm.
have that faith and keep yourself going towards the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a great build on the work of like sort of clarifying what you want,
Mm.
visualizing it. We did some collaging together where I think it was great to sort of get into a more creative space and not think only in terms of words, but allow your subconscious to sort of react to the images that you really like and put them together. And through that process, there was a role that appeared on one of the job sites that was for an international company that has a headquarters in Amsterdam for all of its Europe, Middle East, and Africa companies, and they were looking for a marketing strategist. And the role was a little junior to my experience, but I decided to apply for it anyway because it had so much of what I wanted. And I remember talking to you through the interview process, and also even the creative exercise that they gave me was so much more in line with the type of work that I wanted to do, and
Mm.
visualizing how I wanted to share that back with them, um, and how I wanted to sort of embody that role, I think was really helpful through the interview process, which I think is, depending on the company, is getting kind of longer and longer now. So keeping up
Yeah.
motivation throughout that can be difficult. Um, and then they ended up inviting me over to Amsterdam for interviews on site. And so I think building on that, I did a lot of visualization while I was here in Amsterdam by myself before I went to the interviews, going through my intentions and affirmations before the interviews and getting into a good place and connecting with the people here. And then they ended up offering me the role, which was really exciting.
Mm.
And I think the other exciting part about it was that even though I had applied for a role that was experience-wise more junior to my level of experience, because I thought outside the box and went for something that maybe I wouldn't have, and was able to demonstrate my expertise during the creative sessions and interviews, I ended up getting hired into a more senior level role.
Yeah.
Um,
That
and so,
was good. Yeah.
so that was good, and that's where I think, amazingly, when I look back at sort of all of the things that I had written down in terms of what I wanted in my next role and what I wanted my entire life to feel like with my relationships with my family, this is something that allows us to do all of that. So we wanted to
Mm.
sort of slow down outside of work, and Amsterdam is a great place to be able to do that. It's really family friendly. We
Yeah.
cycle everywhere together. I'm able to spend a ton of time outside. And then being here in Amsterdam, you have incredible access to all of Europe. So we're able to
Yeah.
travel a lot. And then with my role leading marketing strategy across Europe and the Middle East and Africa, I've already been able to go to Johannesburg and Cairo,
Mm.
Paris this year, and I'm going to Poland later in the fall, and probably back to Egypt again, as well as Saudi and Dubai. And so it's just amazing to kind of looking back at all of the things that I wanted, how it's coming together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful process. Like that's like really, really, I'm so happy for you and how it happened. Suddenly things started to flow
Yeah.
and it all worked really well. And yeah, it's a huge transition, of course, but it's like that's something you didn't even think about beforehand, that you would live in another country. You kind of thought that you want to stay in New York and how to make it work and you did feel good, but you were just like, maybe this is it.
Yeah.
But then the opportunities show up, like, and quite often in the ways that we can't even imagine it. So
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah. So it was, I think it really opened my eyes up to a completely different way of thinking and dreaming and making not just incremental changes and how I wanted things to be, like, oh, getting better babysitting routine or something like that.
yeah,
Like, really completely shifting what the biggest areas of our life looked like.
absolutely. And day-to-day life, like, what do you want exactly? And this is why you said, like, now I know, like, why it's so important to know what I want, and knowing what you want all the time, so that you can move forward and flow and stay kind of aligned with your desires.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, like, requiring that you are connecting with yourself almost daily basis in some way. It
Mhm.
could be that it's 5-minute meditation or journaling or something, but you started using these tools, as you told me when we talked last week. You said, like, I'm still using the kind of the tools and methods that I started using, and it's helping you to stay connected and have more joy.
Yeah.
So here in the end, like, what would you say to, because there's many, many people like you, career women, and they are thinking of, they don't know what to do next, how to change their careers. They want something, but they have no idea what is that, what they want,
Mhm.
and what are the first steps. What would you say to them? What is your advice, like, now when you have gone through all this?
Yeah, I think my advice is to start spending time with yourself
Mm,
in the ways that feel really good to you and in ways that kind of shake up your thinking a little bit. Um, and so whether that's journaling or watercoloring or collaging, things like that, that kind of get you out of sort of the day to day thoughts that go through our head. And
mm,
I think, especially for women and mothers, prioritizing that, and for people who are in careers, like, no one is looking out for your um, career or what you're going to do more than you are. And
yeah.
so if you want to see big shifts, then you have to really plug in to yourself and allocate the time to be able to do that and make it like a real priority,
Yeah.
and try to block out the voices that are saying, oh, you need this promotion, or you need this new thing that you buy for yourself or whatever,
Mm,
that often come up as things that sort of culture is telling us to do instead
mhm,
of what we really want. And I think the other thing that I saw through this process, and seeing some of the other stories you shared of people who have made similar shifts, is that what you want is out there and it wants you too.
mhm.
And you can make something out of sort of the things that seem the most ridiculous to you. So for me, it was like, I want to work in a beautiful office. There's that voice in the back of your mind that's like, that's ridiculous. Like, who cares what the office looks like, maybe. Um,
But it matters.
but it matters. And if,
Yeah.
like, sunshine is really important to you,
Yeah.
even getting as detailed as saying, like, I want to work in a place that's full of light or full of
Yeah.
plants or whatever it is, I think you can make that happen. And it's not far-fetched. It's not impossible. You can find what's out there and
Mm,
for you.
beautiful. I think I have nothing to add to that. I think like it's all there, because it's like exactly what you said. Like it's about details and understanding and knowing exactly what you want. And it's not about the salary or title. It's not it. You know, it's everything around it and everything inside it and everything kind of below it, sort of, so that you internalize all these things, as you said. Like it's the career is just one piece of life, and being successful, you need to fulfill like all the other kind of a
Right.
pieces.
But the individual moments are really what matter and what's going to keep you feeling happy
Yeah.
and fulfilled through the day. So the things that may seem the silliest to you about wanting, a great coffee shop on your way to the office, wanting more one-on-one time with your partner or whatever that isn't silly. It's
Yeah.
really the things that are going to keep you happiest and motivated and kind of like bringing your best self to every day.
Hmm. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank
That
you.
was so well said. So thank you for joining with me, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. If you have any questions or comments, you can post to Facebook, or of course you can always email me. Thank you, Laureen. Have a
Great.
good day
Thank you.
and
Bye-bye.
weekend. Bye.